The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to a special edition of Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Shannon Penrod, and Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson is on assignment this morning. I can't wait till next week when she can come back and tell us. She is visiting a guest that we've had here before on the show, Meristem. So she's actually gone and is visiting that particular site, and we're going to wait to hear back what she thinks of it. So we're really thrilled about that. But missing her today. But I'm here, and we are going to be with you for this next hour talking about autism, and we hope that you will tune in to some of the different ways that Traven is showing you right there, including autism-live.com. And we want to hear from you. We want to know your thoughts, your feelings, your questions, and your concerns. We've got a great guest that's coming up a little bit later on, but you know, on Thursdays, I don't even know what Deezer is. That's how old I am. I show that. Somebody's going to have to explain to me what Deezer is, because I'm a geezer, so I don't know what Deezer is. There we are. Okay, but so there I am, s.penrod at autism-live.com. It should just say old lady who does not know and is not hip. There we have it. Shannon Penrod, there it is. That's what it says there. Okay, so on Fridays when we're here for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, we like to cover some news stories for you to let you know some things that are happening around the world. So one of the first things, very controversial, want to know your opinion about it. In New York State, the Department of Transportation has issued a new sign that can be placed in a neighborhood that says, there it is, child with autism. So we've seen before when you're driving in a neighborhood and it'll say, you know, deaf child, blind child, just to let drivers know so that they slow their roll. Literally slow their roll. But now for the first time, they've added this to the repertoire that a family in upstate New York can request this. And they're saying that you can ask now that it's there and that it's in one state, you can ask your local town or city if you would like to have one of these. Now, it's a little controversial, and already, you know, in the last few days since this happened, I've had conversations with a wide variety of people, and everybody has different feelings about this, you know, because some people say, well, that's just a sign for a predator to start looking for that child. And, you know, I don't have an answer for that. I think it's case by case, and that if you have a child who elopes, then let's face it, the number one cause of death for autism is children who elope from their home and drown. And the second is being hit by a car while they elope. So if that is your child and you are concerned about that, you would want to get a sign. You want to shore up your other safety things and make sure, I don't know, have a neighborhood watch thing or something. I don't know. But check your Mandy's Law. Make sure that if there are people in your neighborhood that you should know about. But there are people all over the world that we should all know about, right? We got to be extra, extra careful. And we have to be concerned about the cars as well. So check it out. If it's something that you want, you can request it for your child. And if you feel that it would be more of a hindrance to your child's safety, then simply don't request it, right? Another very interesting study that comes to us from fiercebiotech.com. There are two studies in the last brief period of time. It was last week that two separate research teams teams came forward and said that they were shedding light on autism and that it was about proteins, and that it may affect how we want to treat autism in the beginning. Now, I found, we read these all the time, and a lot of time I don't get them, but these two make sense because of all the research that we've covered before. So first of all, scientists at the Gladstone Institutes were looking at originally, because I always like, how did this study start? So originally they were looking at the connection between Alzheimer's and seizure activity, right? So they were looking at those two things, and they discovered this protein that's in the brain that's called tau, T-A-U, tau, and that when you reduce the level of tau, and by the way, this was in mouse models, that it not only reduced the number of seizures in people, but there were also autism-like behaviors that it reduced. It reduced repetition, difficulty socializing, and impaired communication in the mouse model. Now, I wish Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson were here, because she said years ago, when her husband was ill and dying, he needed care. And for a brief period of time, he was in a memory center, and because that was the only thing that was available. He didn't have a memory problem, but he was in a place where all these other people had memory problems. And she said, Shannon, I'm stunned, because she was there a lot and visiting him and spending, a substantial portion of her day there. And she said, it's eerie how much the Alzheimer's in the seniors resembles autism. And she goes, it's so bizarre that we see the kids, that this comes on and then they have these difficulties, but it's the same with the seniors. And she said, I hope somebody is looking at that. Ta-da! So what they've seen is that if you reduce the level of tau in the brain, that a lot of the things that present as autism in the mouse model, obviously we need to get to human trials, that as even a 50% drop in protein levels can pretty much turn these things around. These particular, again, repetition, difficulty socializing, and impaired communication. By the way, those are the three categories that define autism. So they also, as if this was not enough, this was really exciting, they went on to discover that reducing the tau levels actually boosted something called P10, and that when it's an enzyme that actually helps to tamp down the effect of tau, so that when you reduce the tau, the P10 goes up, and then the P10 moderates the tau. So they're looking for they're hoping to develop small molecule drugs that will either reduce tau or boost P10. I can't wait to hear more about that. Okay, and then in the other study, which comes to us from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology and Brown University, working together, they are looking at the SHANK3 protein, which we have covered before on the show. SHANK3, when you're lacking it. So tau, you have too much, but SHANK3, if you don't have enough of it, then it can make you overly sensitive. In the mouse model, it made them sensitive to the touch of their whiskers, hypersensitivity to light, noises, and other stimuli, and they are relating that to autism. So in any case, they have seen that there are certain people whose brains do not develop SHANK3, and that those individuals tend to be on the autism spectrum. So they're looking for a way to increase SHANK3 and help to lower that sensory sensitivity. Isn't this fascinating? I find it fascinating. Those are two studies I'm actually very excited to hear about what happens with them once they move out of the mouse model, right? Okay, and then our last article for today that I wanted to talk a little bit about, this is an article that Nancy Doyle wrote for Diversity and Inclusion. And was really interesting. The title of it is Hiring Autistic Male Coders, Neurodiversity Inclusion or Exploitation. Now, I was a little disappointed because I felt that that title was a little bit off topic, because it made it sound like, oh, if we're specifying that a job is for individuals that are neurodiverse, is that in some way exploiting what their talents are? And I thought, well, I'm not going to be against that. But the key here is that it's male coders, neurodiversity, inclusion, or exploitation, because it goes on to talk about the fact that we're not playing to women's strengths, and that one of the things that I thought was really fascinating was that in one study where they just were looking at how women perform on math tests, nothing to do with hiring or anything like that, but a math test. And math is definitive, right? Like there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer. And when women were asked to put their name on the top of the math test, they performed poorly, more poorly than they did if they weren't asked to put their name. So if they weren't asked to identify that they were a female, there was something psychologically about that allowed them to perform better. And this article talks about how women are being disregarded from the beginning of any process, whether it is autism or other. I'm rolling my mic here, sorry. I just thought that this was really fascinating. And I think it's a good read, especially if you have a daughter on the spectrum, or if you are a woman that is on the spectrum, to take a look at what she's calling out and saying, hey, you know, that there's systemic exploitation and non-inclusion of women, and that we need to turn that on its head and have systemic inclusion, and that it should be across gender. So there you go. And again, that is Nancy Doyle, Diversity and Inclusion. Okay, and her argument is that your hiring practices should be as diverse as your clientele, which, hey, I'm with you, Nancy. Okay, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we've got a great guest, Ben Hartranft. I'm going to hope that I said that right. He's 21 years old, and he's done some pretty amazing things. He was the Philadelphia Eagles Autism Challenge ambassador, and even got to be on the Ellen show. So he's going to talk to us a little bit about his life and what that was like, coming up after these messages. Stick with us.
Hey, I'm Candace Cameron Bray.
Tom Bergeron.
You're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
You're watching Autism Live.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
Parent to parent, having a compliant child is one of the greatest things on earth. But frequently we ask ourselves, why doesn't my child listen? Well, here are some tips to help us to get a listening, happy, compliant child. First, we want to make sure that we make compliance worthwhile. Whenever your child does something that's compliant, make sure that you praise them and heap rewards on them that are meaningful to them, things they really want. One of the things that we have to be mindful of is that if the child isn't compliant, we have to praise more often. Just heap it on. If you say to yourself, there's nothing to praise, they're not doing anything that I want them to do, then ask them to do something that they already want to do. This is a really tricky way of being able to praise them. And then, of course, the last thing that we want to do is catch them doing good things when they least suspect it. And make sure you heap that praise on, because having a compliant child is one of the best things in life. Token economies are a great way to get to good behavior with your child. Welcome back to Autism Live. We're very excited to welcome for the first time on our show a very wonderful and unique young man. Ben Hartranft is with us. There he is. Hi, Ben. And that is his mom, Sandy, who's there with us. Welcome to the show, you guys. Ben, we're really excited to have you with us. And I want to start by talking a little bit about your family. Describe your family to us.
So I have two brothers. One is 27 and one is 20. It's going to be 25. And they do not have autism. And they work at, one works at Prudential and one works with me.
Wonderful. And now, Ben, you identify yourself as an individual on the autism spectrum. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And I want to talk with both of you a little bit about when you were diagnosed and, what that was like.
You want to start?
I'll start. So, when I first found out when I had autism, I said to my mom, I want to take my autism and wash it away. Like, take it out and just wash my brain away. So now today I just want to advocate for people, talk to people, and try to promote autism awareness and take it to the next level.
I love that. How old were you when you were diagnosed, Ben?
So when he was about 18 months old, we thought he had a hearing issue because he wasn't responding to his name. And we took him to the hearing doctor and everything was fine. And we just kind of checked that box. And nobody ever said, you really should keep looking into this because there's some reason why he's not responding to his name. Yeah. And when he was 2, we just didn't think he had enough words.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we took him to speech therapist.
Miss Paula Barson taught me how to talk.
Yeah, that's really when we first got our diagnosis.
And today I just talk, and there's no off button on me.
I love it.
On me. I screamed 11 times on a roller coaster.
I love it. I love it. So what kinds of things, when you were a kid growing up, what kinds of things were particularly hard for you?
Making friends, Today, when we talk about Ellen DeGeneres, we talk about being kind to one another. And if you see somebody around, join them. That's what I would do. If you see somebody being unkind, stand up for them. If you see somebody that didn't get invited somewhere, invite them.
Well, wonderful. And Mom, for the other moms who are watching who can relate, what you mentioned before that he wasn't talking as much, what other kinds of things were you seeing that when he was a small child with autism?
Yeah, so when he was really little, I was so locked in on the speech, I kind of missed some of the other symptoms. He was the youngest of 3 boys. We had a really busy household, and I just knew he didn't have enough words. And so I was one day standing at work, and the speech therapist was standing next to me, and I said, do you do speech therapy for kids here? And when she asked why, I told her, and she said, oh, no, you have to talk to the intermediate unit, which is the provider in our area that works for younger kids that aren't in school yet. And they came out and did an evaluation, And when they finished that evaluation, I was just blown away because he was delayed in gross motor, he was delayed in fine motor, everything was behind, and it was so much bigger than what I saw. So I was very thankful for that comprehensive evaluation and the services that we were able to start right away.
Well, and what kinds of, because, you know, people are going to look at you, Ben, and they're going to go, you're remarkable, and we're going to talk about some of your achievements in just a minute, but parents are going to start writing in right now saying, what kinds of things did you do that Ben is so great? So what did you do?
So back then, when you said what was hard, everything was a safety issue back then. I mean, he would just run out the door. He had no sense of, boundaries. He had no sense of safety outside. So it was just, if we couldn't see him or hear him, we had better find him.
And now today's technology is like you can have trackers on iPhones, trackers on people, wristbands. I mean, today people are certifications on autism certified stuff.
So there was a lot of things that weren't available back then. But the first services that we put in place were from the intermediate unit, and they took him to a program that was run by Easter Seals. And for 2.5 hours twice a week, I went with him to that program. And I was so grateful for that because I got to see how the different educators and teachers worked with him, and then I would try to take that things home and do it at home. And then we put him on the list for speech therapy, which took 6 months to get a private speech therapist in our area. And they did physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy all at this program. And it was great to have all that in place.
Well, and you, from what I've read about you, Ben, you've had, you've got a tight-knit community around you too. That you attend a church, and that you also have worked a job for a really long time. What job? Because I hear that you started working a job at 16. What was your job at 16?
I started working at Olive Garden when I was 16. And one day I was watching the TV. I was watching the Eagles versus the Arizona Cardinals game, and the phone rang, and it said Olive Garden. And I said, "Hello, is this Ben?" "Hi, yes. Can you come in for an interview?" I accidentally hung up on my manager, and I had to call him back. And I said, "Oh, come in for an interview." And I've been there ever since. You know, I started doing salad, then doing breadsticks, then busing and hosting. They've been so great to me. Olive Garden's a huge blessing for me, and all the managers are great.
Now, how did you apply for a job at Olive Garden, or they already knew it? You did?
I did.
And who got you to the point where you said at 16, was that something that mom did, or did they teach you that at school?
My brothers and my people at school, like, I really think you need a job. And if my brothers got a job, I wanted to get a job. So that's when I applied.
It was so cool to have that modeling for him because he just didn't really see any limitations on himself. If his brothers did it, why wouldn't he? So actually when he was 14, every time he saw a job opening, he would apply, he'd put an application in. So it took 2 years before anybody reached out and offered him this job. And then I started panicking because I wanted to know, would the school support him in that? Because they had, some things going on there. And they're like, no, if it doesn't happen on school hours, we can't help. And then we talked to the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, and they're like, no, if he's still a student, we can't be involved. But luckily, the organization was really awesome, and they did, it was a perfect job for him to start off with, and they really worked with him well.
Well, go Olive Garden, and go you, Ben, because this is fabulous. I'm sorry?
Don't forget the unlimited salad and breadsticks.
Yeah, no kidding. Best salad ever. I love the olives. Okay, so, but then you have some pretty exciting things that have happened in your life, including, we sort of teased before that you've been on the Ellen Show. Talk to us about how it all started.
Oh my gosh. So I said to my mom over here, Mom, when I went Homecoming King, I want to get on Ellen. Ben, are you crazy? Do you really think it's ever going to happen? I'm going to try. So I wrote in. I haven't heard anything. Everybody tried. She had over 40 people wrote in. One day, we were coming back from Six Flags, got a phone call that said Burbank on it. And I said, hello? Is this Ben? Is this the Ellen Show? And it was one of the producers. I had to keep a secret for 6 weeks. I couldn't tell anybody.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Well, you sort of glossed over the fact that you were Homecoming King. So what was that like?
Homecoming King was great. I told my mom again, I want to run for Homecoming King. And it was in the summer, 4 years ago, and she goes, well, Ben, I I don't know. I don't know if you can win. The Debbie Downer over here.
But I love it. I love that he's got these ideas, Mom, and that you're trying to keep him, with his feet on the ground, but doesn't matter because his ideas are panning out. So you were on the Ellen show. What was that like?
It was unreal. She gave me Universal tickets. She gave me $10,000 for the Eagles Autism Challenge from Shutterfly, and then she also gave me Eagles autographed items and Eagles tickets to a game.
Okay, so at what point did you become the Eagles Autism? What is the name of it? It's the
Eagles Autism Challenge. So Eagles Autism Challenge was started by Jeffrey Lurie. His brother is on the autism spectrum, and they want to take autism awareness to action. When they won the Super Bowl, I got invited to go carry the Vince Lombardi trophy at the ring ceremony. At the ring ceremony. So I touched the Lombardi trophy.
What was that like? Was that cool?
It was so cool. Honestly, my parents thought I was going to drop it.
Is that what your nightmare was, Mom?
That is so precious, that opportunity to be there. So if we take it back one step, we got to a point in our lives where you spend a lot of time with guilt, like, why did this happen? Did I do something? Is there some reason why he has this autism? And then you get to a point where you're like, okay, this is not serving any functional purpose. And so we decided to get involved in research because we thought if there's nothing we can do about what we have right now, maybe we can make a difference going forward. And so we got involved with our children's hospital locally, and Ben did, 7 or 8 research studies through them.
And then the Eagles did that story.
And so one day the Eagles, our Philadelphia Eagles, reached out to Children's Hospital and said,
huddle up.
We want to highlight somebody on the autism spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And so they did a whole story on Ben. So that kind of started the connection there, and then they gave him some wonderful opportunities.
And then I went up to Jason Kelsey. I don't know if you heard of him. He's the center for the Philadelphia Eagles. I work at Dorney Park, and I said, Jason, do you want to go to Dorney Park? I'm in. Are you sure? I'm positive. So we literally met at Dorney Park, and we spent 4 hours on the park together. Mom over here was like, oh, Ben, I really don't know.
Well, it's so good that you know for her, Ben.
He tells me that sometimes I hold him back, but I remind him I'm his kite string. So
Charlie Brown.
Yeah, but he's taking you on a wild ride, is what the truth is. And I think it's just beginning. I think this is just the beginning of the wild ride that is going to be Ben's life. So Ben, now as a result of all of this, you're doing speaking engagements, right?
Yes.
Talk about where you do speaking engagements and what you talk about.
I do my speaking engagements at different schools, so I did about 40 different schools, and I talk about never let go of your dreams and my autism. And I'm going to a couple this week, and then I'm going to a couple in April.
Wonderful. And so if people want to book you to come to their event, where do they go to do that, Ben?
So I actually have my business card on me. Where do we go? Oh, perfect. You can visit my website, which is right here.
Okay, we can't see it. Can you read it to us?
I'll read it to you guys. Sorry.
That's okay.
So my email is BENERGY, capital EAC, @yahoo.com. And my website is My Journey. So it's benergy1.wordpress.com. Again, benergy1@wordpress.com. If you would like to come hear me speak, or if you want to book me, or if you want to just donate to the Eagles Autism Challenge, we can also put my website on there and a link to my donation page.
There we go. So spell the website for me again. It's BENERGY
1, the number 1, and then .wordpress.com.
Okay. So and if they go there, they can get to all the other things as well.
That's true. Yep.
Well, Ben, I cannot wait to see all the things that you do. You're still working at Olive Garden?
Yes, I am.
And then what are your hopes and dreams, Ben? What do you want to do?
Yay, I can talk about it. Okay. So my next goal is to actually get on Jimmy Fallon, Kelly Clarkson, the Tammy Hall Show, Good Morning America, and just talk about autism. I really want to get on more TV shows to just promote and just give parents hope.
And what would you want to talk about on those shows? Give us the pitch.
All right, I would just tell them to never let go of your dreams and to always be successful, and to never, ever, ever, ever ask, never talk to somebody who has questions. So if somebody has a question who is on the autism spectrum, you can always go up to them and they can start a conversation.
Absolutely. It's okay to ask, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I would like to just give a word of encouragement to parents. One of the things that we found so helpful was being involved in things where parents were a little bit ahead of us on the journey. So Special Olympics, there were a lot of parents, and they helped us navigate the financial organizations and the medical organizations and all the different programming in our area. And then one of the things that's really important in our life is our faith in God. And he always brought the right person at the right time, because part of Ben's journey is we didn't think he would speak, and he brought us just to the right speech therapist who broke that open. And then the schools got to a point where they kind of gave up on Ben and said, oh, he probably is never going to learn to read. And again, God brought just the right person with the right program.
And the Talk Institute taught me how to read. So I went from a kindergarten to a second grade reader, 2 years at that school. So God really brought me to that school, because that was a huge accomplishment. And I also would like to throw in there about God, about the Bridge Ministry. So God has brought me to a great disability ministry at Calvary Saverton. My faith helps me through hard times. I love the Bridge Ministry is through 35 to 35. So I'm going to say like 15 to 35. And it's a great organization that you can serve, and the teens and adults pour out their spirits, and just God does a lot of things out there, and it's really incredible.
Because one of the things that happens to families, no matter what their faith is, a lot of times they just drop out of organized religion because the churches and synagogues aren't very welcoming, or they don't really know how to handle it. But the church that we found actually has a person on staff that runs their disability ministry, and it's really an amazing organization, and we're very grateful.
What a wonderful, wonderful story you guys have. It's so inspirational, and I think it's going to help a whole lot of people. And, I love that you're talking, because a lot of people feel disenfranchised by their churches. So I love how you're talking about that. But I also think that job component is super duper important. The fact that you were convinced that you knew you were going to work a job from day one. We have Joanne Lara as a regular on the show. She does Autism Works Now, and she says how important it is for all of us to talk to all of our children and ask all of our children, what do you want to be when you grow up? What job do you want to have? And that not a lot of families just assume that their children are not going to work, and this is not the path. And we can see. Go ahead.
One thing. And I got my driver's license 2 years ago.
Yeah. And that was life-changing for me, because I was Uber mommy, and so, we weren't sure if he would drive, and we took, quite a long time to get it, and lots of medical appointments, lots of help from different organizations, but he's been driving for a year and a half now, and it's been freeing for him and freeing for us too, and that's a real blessing.
Well, you got to tell us how did you handle that? What were the organizations that helped you to teach him how to drive? I'm right there. I have a 16-year-old.
So we started with my husband, who did the other two.
He had a full head of hair, and now he doesn't anymore.
But OVR, the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, actually paid for driving lessons for him. And what my husband said was the man who came had a brake on his side of the car. So it really helped to take him out on the road, because it was safe. Because if anything did happen, he could obviously stop the car when needed. And so that really helped. Just really taking his time. One of the things Ben did was on his phone, there was an app where you could practice the written exam. So he kept taking the test.
And I failed 6 times. And then I passed the 7th try. One day I went in and I failed, and I cried so hard, and I said, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. And then one day I passed, and I went, woohoo!
And now you're a safe driver.
Yes.
Yep.
That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So ultimately, after you get on all of these talk shows, Ben, what kind of a job do you want to end up with? Do you want to be somebody who continues to be a speaker? Do you want to work your way up Olive Garden? What do you want to do?
So I actually have 2 jobs that I'm working at right now. I work at Access Services, and they help people with disabilities. I help with their social events and stuff. And then I also work at a movie theater, and I'm the guest ambassador. So I literally greet guests all day as they come into the door. Like, they're sometimes upset or sad. And that's what I do at Dorney Park as well. I actually go around, talk to guests, and turn the frowns to smiles. and I basically fascinate them if they need help, or sometimes I give them some prizes like soda cups and a wristband and everything.
One of the things that we found is he's been able to get a lot of part-time jobs. We haven't really locked into that full-time job. So that we called it the adult cliff. We could finally figure out all the paperwork and everything for school, and then 21 happens, and you're like, oh, wow, well, that's kind of useless now.
Yeah.
So navigating the adult world has been a little harder. We'd love to find him a full-time job. He loves working at Darney Park. Unfortunately, it's seasonal because we live in a climate not like California,
I would love to live in
where
California.
it snows, so the amusement parks aren't open all year round. So still trying to find that balance. He would love to be a full-time speaker, but finding enough opportunities there isn't always, opportunity too.
Ben, I'm going to tell you a secret that I don't think I've disclosed here on the show before, but my husband's full-time job that he works, he's an actor at Universal Studios Hollywood. And so he works in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. And so it's a union acting job. That's his full-time job. Something to think about.
Yeah.
So
He loves amusement parks. That's his thing. Roller coasters and amusement parks.
So has your husband ever met any famous people?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we live in Hollywood, so we all meet famous people. They're around all the time.
If I'm ever back on the Ellen Show or Kelly Clarkson, I'm going to let you guys know.
Oh, please let us know, because we'll be happy to tweet about it and share, tell all of our viewers to watch. Ben, we think that you're incredible. Obviously, you're incredible because you've already been on the Ellen Show. My goodness. I know a lot of people who say that they want to be on the Ellen Show, Ben, but not very many of them get to be on the Ellen Show. So you're clearly doing something right, and we look forward to hearing all the good things that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And Mom, thank you. What an incredible mom you are. And what a joy and a treat you are, Ben.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, you guys have a good day.
Thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye-bye.
What an inspirational mom and son. I'm tossing my sign around because it's so exciting. So hopefully check out his page and book him to come to your school. For heaven's sake, what a wonderful speaker, or for your corporate event. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to be back with more of Autism Live. Stick with us.
Life-threatening aspects of autism. Unfortunately, autism can be a life-threatening condition. There are things that are associated with it that parents need to know about. First of all, there's the risk of seizure. It's heightened in people with autism. There's also the risk of what they call elopement, which means basically running away. Elopement can lead to things like exposure, drowning if they get near bodies of water, and maybe being hit by cars. Being hit by cars is certainly something that seems to be emerging as a problem in people with autism. So what do? We have to take certain steps to keep them safe to start. That means at home. Let's look around the home first. Where are your points of entry? Barriers, doors, windows, access to bodies of water, gates, fences. You have to look at school, because people with autism can sometimes elope from school or things like that, daycare. So you have to make sure that it is written into their plan, wherever they are, that people are going to be responsible. That may include a tracking device. For some people with autism or Asperger's, a tracking device might be useful. It might help people know where they are, so in case someone has taken them a place that they shouldn't be taken, kind of tricked them. Sometimes you get that happening with your teenagers, or they're just a child that's unable to communicate or speak very well, and you need to know where they are. Consider that. There's a new generation of tracking devices. It can go in their shoe, can go in their jean, maybe in a cell phone. And I would also add that one of the most life-threatening aspects of autism is sadly being bullied, socially excluded, things like that. That's always happening in people with autism spectrum disorder. People bully them, exclude them. The risk of suicide is unfortunately very high. So do not be afraid to probe, ask uncomfortable questions, see what's happening. Even if they don't tell you, you need to ask other people at school what they know, what they've seen. Even though it's an uncomfortable thing, we do need to be aware that this is a very dangerous situation at times. Be very, very vigilant. Stay upbeat, be positive, and realize no one person and no one family can keep a child with autism safe all by themselves. Get the support you need, look around, be vigilant. It's better to take steps you feel that you don't need too soon than too late.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Okay, so a lot has happened recently. A couple of weeks ago, we did on the show, I'd gone through all of the disability plans of all of the candidates that were that had made one available online that were running for the Democratic nomination here in the United States. Obviously, that field has changed exponentially. So now it appears, and anything could happen at any moment, but it appears that one of three people will be the president of the United States starting next January, and that will either be, you know, the current president, Trump, or it will be Joe Biden, or it will be Bernie Sanders, and I'm referring to disability plans here. So I just want to recap a little bit because we are a group of people, the greater autism community, and by greater I mean, of course, individuals who are on the autism spectrum, which we're going to be talking more about their voting rights, because if you are a person on the autism spectrum, you very likely have voter rights or should. And if you have a child who is 18 or older on the autism spectrum, they very likely have or should have voting rights. So important that we all vote, right? No matter who you're voting for. Now, it's important to me that we know about a lot of different issues, right? But we all have different issues that we want to know about. So the one that we have in common is that we want to know what plans these folks have for individuals who are on the autism spectrum. We covered this before, and now the field has changed. We should say that the current president does not have policies that are issued outside of what the current policies are, right? And we are seeing those policies as they play out. So that we have access to, and we're seeing day to day what we have access to. But for the other two, they're proposing new things. And so I just want to go back and show you that this is the Bernie Sanders plan. And it is lengthy, double-sided, small print, and it starts with, I'm trying to see, 2.5 pages that he says right out the gate, using executive action to advance disability rights. And he, point by point, lists a bunch of things that he will use executive action very quickly. The great thing about executive action is that, you know, it doesn't get bogged down in committee, and it doesn't have to get through the Senate. It just, you know, you say boom, and there are a long list of things here. By the way, on the front page too, he also gives you his key points so that you can see, but it's all here in one place as it relates to education. There are many different categories. There's housing, there's education, there's job opportunities, there's healthcare, there's discrimination and criminalization of disability, which we all need to be very aware of, that more and more people on the autism spectrum are being arrested and don't have the ability, there's a whole category here that's about social justice, don't have the ability or the knowledge or the resources to get support. Obviously, there's education in here. Housing for all. I mean, this is a lengthy, well thought out, eliminate medical debt and predatory lending and veterans, separate categories there. Digital inclusion, immigration with inclusion. This is all just about disabilities. This is Bernie Sanders' plan. Now, Biden's plan is much smaller. Let's remember that Trump's does not exist anywhere definitively. It's just a living, breathing thing, right? But Joe Biden's folks decided that they would do this in a smaller way, and they have their plans. Their disability plan is often segmented it off into other plans. So, for instance, they have the plan on education, which is just the plan on education. Then you go to that, and then there is a segment of it that talks about, you know, for individuals with disabilities. Same thing with, you know, for older people, for long-term care, for health care, justice, they're all segmented off. And so there's very little here that's just, I have this policy for disabilities. And I want to say to the Biden camp, this is not going to work. We need for you to get closer to this if you want us. Like, we need to be lobbying, because this is somebody who may be president. We need to be lobbying and saying, hey, you got the support of Pete Buttigieg. So, like, when we went through this, I said the two people who have the best plans, that I love Mayor Pete and that I loved Bernie Sanders, they both had things that I liked. And if I could marry the two together, it would make me really happy. So I'm saying to the people in the Biden camp, all you have to do is look to the Pete people and say, hey, who the people that you had working on this, can we have them work on this? I'm just saying, right? Because I don't know who's going to be president. I don't even know who I'm going to vote for at this point in time. But let's get somebody who has really all of this. Let's get it together, fellas. That's what I'm saying. Because if we don't lobby for this, who will? Right? And what I have learned over the years is that the autism community is this ginormous, and I started to talk about the greater autism community because, first of all, individuals on the spectrum, and they can and should vote, and they have a say in all of this, right? And we want to be listening to them. So all of the self-advocates that are out there, first and foremost, we want to know, what do you want in the plan, right? But then there is the greater autism community, which is all of the people who care about individuals on the autism spectrum. And that includes the parents and the teachers and the people who do therapy. All of us care about those individuals on the autism spectrum. When you put all of us together, we are a voting bloc that is seriously fierce and that has the ability to move mountains if we speak in a voice together. Now, we don't agree on all things, right? You know, there are self-advocates who are watching that are not a fan of me, right? And I'm okay with that. Let's agree to disagree on a whole bunch of stuff, but I think there's a bunch of stuff we could agree on, like healthcare, like jobs, and like social justice. I 100% think that we could agree on that. And then we turn our megaphone, it's like the Horton Hears a Who, right? If the whole community went, hey, I think we could be heard and make a real difference here. I will say that there is a group within the Democratic Party that works on this and has been working on this for a very long time, even when Secretary Clinton was running for office. There was this whole commission of people, a task force that was working on disabilities and creating policy, a lot of which we saw in these reports. We're not really seeing it in the Biden report, which I don't really understand. But some of which we saw in the Sanders, some of which we saw in the Warren, some of which we saw in the Buttigieg. So I would love for all of the, let's get definitive here. Who's going to support? We need this. That group of people is still working and functioning. And by the way, there are a lot of people who are on the committee. It's not just about autism. It's about all disabilities. And the leader of the task force is someone who has a disability, and I would say over 50% of the people on the task force identify themselves as having a disability of one sort or the other. So, and then there are other people who have expertise in different areas. So, I hope they're talking to these people, because we need to get policies in place so that we all know what we're doing when we step into that voting booth between now and November, and then most especially in November, right? Because it should be something that is of concern to us. So that's what I have to say about that. We're going to take another break, and then we'll come to close out the show. Stick with us.
Hello, fellow activists. Last week, we talked about the first step to empowerment. Accept and embrace this challenge. Sometimes you have people that support you in your denial. Maybe it's your husband, maybe it's your mother. When I expressed my concern to my pediatrician about Wyatt losing language around the age of 2, his response, maybe he's a late talker, he's a boy. Let's wait and see. But what about the temper tantrums? What about the fact that he put his head through the kitchen window? What about the bite marks and scratches all over my arms and chest? He said he's probably just frustrated that he can't express himself. Let's wait and see. But autism doesn't afford us that luxury. Of course, I was relieved with my pediatrician's reassurances, but I should have gone with my gut, because if I had, I could have gotten a diagnosis 2 years earlier. And I lost 2 valuable years that could have been spent on early intervention. And finally, when Wyatt was diagnosed, he was misdiagnosed. But of course, part of that was my problem too. I lied in a lot of those parent questionnaires so things looked better. I can't turn back the hands of time, but I can recommend that you face this challenge head on. Denial prevents us from walking a path we eventually will have to walk anyway. The sooner you face the truth, the sooner you can help your child. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep the faith.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. 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 Let's get wild.
Hi, it's Lisa Ackerman. Welcome back to What's Left. We're enjoying some wine. We're gonna make some fake bourbon chicken tonight, but we're not using bourbon. It's not gluten-free. So what we're doing, and Kristen, you're doing a great job at pounding and getting out all of your energy on that chicken, so go take it out.
I know. You know, how many of us moms are at a park or we're at a grocery store and somebody walks up to you and, you know, your child's having a meltdown and, you know, having not one of those fun days. This is a great thing to come home to. You would come home and really pound that chicken and you would feel so much better. Basically, it kills 2 birds with 1 stone.
You're making a great meal for your family.
Yes, and you're feeling great.
You're feeling better about that jerk who said, why can't you get your kid under control?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take all your pounded, aggressive chicken and start to saute it in the skillet. And I'm just going to add a little bit of my grapeseed oil. So I'm going to go ahead and just put this in. We love the way we're going to just try to brown this up and cook it a little bit. Just a little bit of salt and pepper on top. And we're just going to go ahead and brown this. Great, Kristen. Great job. I think we're almost all brown here, so I'm going to get your help over at the cutting board, if you don't mind.
The cutting station.
The cutting station. We're going to cut this in about 1/3 slices. You go chop it up.
Okay.
And I'm going to start on the sauce.
Okay.
We're going to take the orange juice, water, and add that in. And I'm going to measure out the fake soy sauce, 1/3 cup. Add that in. Take in your ketchup and your brown sugar and go ahead and put that in. So in here is the red pepper flakes and ginger. So we're going to go ahead and add that in. So in the red pepper flakes, if you've got a kid that's really sensitive and doesn't like to bring a lot of heat to the kitchen, you can definitely omit that. That's not a problem. And then my favorite, as much garlic as tolerated. And the last thing that we're going to do, and as we get this heated up on the skillet, is we're going to pull this in, thicken to the sauce, and add in the arrowroot to thicken it. So we're going to go back to the frying pan. And put in our sauce, and we're going to bring it to a boil, and that's when I'm going to add the arrowroot. What arrowroot does for everything, like when we're baking with gluten-free flours, this adds kind of the oomph to hold it together. Arrowroot is also a great sauce thickener. So let's go in and add the chicken. Thank you again for helping get this all together. I made extra sauce because I'm a saucy girl. So we made a really nice meal here tonight. We're talking just the right flavors, right texture. So I'm going to serve you up to what we're going to have for dinner, if that sounds good to you. Yes! So
I always love coming over.
So what we made over here is just really some, what I call my dirty rice. And it's just some of the really nice different spices. I use a little red pepper flakes in that as well. Beaumont, parsley. and just salt and pepper. It's really simple. And some of my favorite, which is zucchini sauteed. So I'm going to just go ahead and serve you up, and you can get to be my guinea pig once again.
I will always be a good guinea pig anytime you cook.
Bon appetit, my friend.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us at Autism Live. Kristen, I had fun with you today.
I always have fun. Thank you.
It is. It's great. And we had fun with you, too. And if you have questions or want to see us cook some more different dinners, just email us. You can email us at autismlive@gmail.com or go to Facebook, facebook.com/autismlive. Or Taka Now. Taka's got tons of recipes, over 2,000 recipes ready for you to come and explore and have some fun. And thanks to Holly for this great bourbon-free bourbon chicken. And we'll see you next time on What's Love? Bye, guys.
You say hi, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. So I was supposed to go over the things that we were doing last week. Do you see how I pack up all of my papers and then I never have the paper that I'm supposed to have? Okay. It's just like when you go to the grocery store. Do you do this? It's an IQ test. But you take your bags with you to the grocery store, and the first thing that I do is I put my purse in the little part where kids usually sit, and then I put my bags in the bottom of the cart, and then I proceed to put all of the groceries on top of the bags and pile them on top of my purse. So then when I get to the checkout, we have to dig the bags out from underneath the stuff so that we can bag the stuff, and I have to dig my purse out. And I always say this is an IQ test, and I fail every single time. The other day I did this at Trader Joe's, and while I was digging my purse out, a bottle of garlic olive oil went, over the edge, shall we say, and so now my shoes, everything, my shoes smell like garlic olive oil. I guess there are worse things, but it's an IQ test. And same thing here, where it's just like there's one piece of paper you have to have at the end of the show, and I always pack it up before the end of the show. Not winning the IQ test. Here we go. It's an executive function thing. Okay, so on the show next week, on Monday, we've got Bonnie Yates is going to be with us discussing your rights, and it's IEP season, so she's got a big show planned for you guys. On Tuesday, we have a best of. I know you're going to love it. On Wednesday, we have Dr. Doreen Grampiche, who's going to be with us answering your questions live. On Thursday, we have the folks from Clarify. They've been on the show before. This is a saliva test for autism that I think you're going to be really excited about. So they're going to be with us on Thursday talking about that. And then next week's Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, we have Yadira Calderon, who's going to be talking about her wonderful, wonderful daughter, who just competed in a really cool skating contest. And we're also going to have Denise Voigt with us. So that will be a great show. We're looking forward to it. And Nancy should be back, and she'll tell us all about her trip to Meristem and what she thought of it. So Traven, I have no idea. How much time have I got left? Anything I can talk about? Okay, so I've got a couple of minutes here. So I just want to talk about this month of autism awareness that we've got staring down at us. And that we've been told by the CDC to expect disruption. And it's very likely that some autism events are going to be postponed or even canceled as we see more things happening and not happening. And I just want to say that it's a wonderful time to investigate all the things that are online. There are a lot of resources that are online. My one fear in all of this is that when we put people in isolation, they feel isolated. And that if you are in an area where you're being asked to stay home and your child is being asked not to go to school because of the novel coronavirus, I hope that you will reach out to us here, that we're happy to answer questions. We're looking at putting on a little bit more time live so that you guys can be interacting and talking with us and talking with others. But I hope that it won't deter you from getting that April boost from that everybody feels when you get your battery recharged and be reminded that A, there's hope, and B, you're not in this alone, right? because you know what I always say here, si se puede, hold hands, we can do this together, right? So even if you are in a place where you're being asked to stay at home, thank goodness for the internet. And I hope that you will reach out with us here and to all the other support groups that there are. And I think you'll see that there's going to be an explosion of things on the internet to connect all of us so that none of us feels like we're doing this alone. It already feels that way for autism. We don't need to feel it extra, right? So if you've got ideas of things that you want to see if you're being quarantined, write to us, let us know what it is that would be helpful to you, because that's really what we're here about, right? And we will get through this. We've gotten through other things. We will get through this. And somebody was saying the other day, it's like, find the pluses in everything, right? And while this is terrible, and there are some people who are sick now and probably more getting sick, while all that's happening, let's be concerned about that, but let's find opportunities for how we can move the dial forward, how we can help our kiddos, help our teenagers, help our young adults, to be more like Ben, right? Get a job and be excited about what's going on. That's how we all need to be. So stay tuned here, but also be writing into us. Tell us the kind of programming that you would like to see if and when you are stuck at home with your kiddo on the autism spectrum. We're going to be here for you. So that's all for today. Come back later on next week and have a good weekend. Until Monday, give yourself a hug from us and one for your kiddo too. Bye-bye for now.